This past September, a woman walked into my clinic on a Tuesday morning, and I'm going to call her Diane. Not her real name, but every word of her story is real. She sat down, put her lab results face down on my desk, and said, "Just tell me if I'm going to end up like my mother." Her mother spent the last 6 years of her life in a wheelchair after a stroke. Couldn't garden anymore, couldn't drive to see her grandkids, needed a home aide for things she used to do without thinking. Diane wasn't scared of a number on a page. She was scared of becoming a burden, scared of losing the version of herself that still plants tomatoes every spring. Here's what unsettled me. Diane had done everything her old doctor told her 7 years ago. Cut the butter, skipped the eggs on Sunday, switched to margarine because the tub said heart healthy. Her LDL was higher than it was 3 years earlier, not lower, higher. And she is not the only one. I see that same tight jaw, that same quiet panic, at least twice a week in my own office. Because here's what almost nobody explains in a rushed 10-minute visit. Without dealies, cutting cholesterol off your plate barely touches the cholesterol already circulating in your blood. Your liver makes most of it, every single day, whether you ate an egg or not. Picture your liver as a factory with a conveyor belt that never shuts off. It pushes cholesterol out through a fluid called bile, dumps it into your gut to help digest fat, and then, this is the part nobody sits you down and walks through, your intestines grab almost all of it back. Somewhere close to 95%. Made, dumped, recycled, made again. I call this the return loop. And if you're stuck inside it, you could quit bacon for the rest of your natural life and barely move the needle on your blood work. I'm Dr. Marcus Wells. For the next several minutes, I'm walking you through 10 foods that do something different. They don't just avoid feeding the loop, they physically break it open. A few of them are sitting in your pantry right now, doing absolutely nothing for you, because nobody ever explained how to use them properly. Stay with me through the whole list, because the food at number 1 has more research behind it than almost anything else on earth for pulling cholesterol out of your body fast, and there's one mistake nearly everyone makes with it that cancels out most of the benefit before it ever gets the chance to work. Hold on to one idea and the rest of this clicks into place. Some of these foods grab bile in your gut like a mop and drag it out before your liver can pull it back in. Others feed the bacteria living in your colon, the ones that break cholesterol down before your body ever absorbs it. That's the entire mechanism. The more cholesterol that leaves through the bathroom, the less ends up quietly narrowing your arteries over the next 10 years. If you want a target, aim for somewhere around 5 to 10 grams of soluble fiber a day. Research reviewed by institutions like the Mayo Clinic points to that range for a measurable drop in LDL. You'll hit that number without much strain once we get through this list. There's a flip side, and I'd be doing you a disservice if I left it out. Saturated fat, the marbled ribeye, the fried chicken skin, that flaky pastry sitting in the bakery case, can nudge your liver toward holding onto cholesterol instead of clearing it out. Not poison, not something to panic over the one time it touches your plate at a birthday dinner. Just something to ease off, the way you'd lift your foot off the gas pedal, not slam the brakes. Less, not zero. One more thing before we start, and it costs you nothing but a single sentence at your next appointment. Ask your doctor about a blood test called ApoB. It counts the actual number of cholesterol-carrying particles floating in your blood, which tells a fuller story than the standard LDL number by itself. Most people go their whole life without ever asking for it once. One test, one time, then you know exactly what you're working with before you change a single meal on your plate. Number 10. Avocado. Half an avocado carries a plant compound called beta-glucan, which physically competes with cholesterol for absorption space in your gut. A little like two people racing for the same open seat on a crowded bus, and cholesterol frequently loses. A study out of Penn State tracked adults eating one avocado a day and found a meaningful dip in LDL within 5 weeks. Not a miracle, a real, measured shift. The trick most people miss: spread it where you'd normally reach for butter or mayonnaise, on toast, in a sandwich, mashed onto a warm tortilla. You're not adding avocado on top of your old habits. You're replacing the thing that was working against you. Watch the portion though, half a fruit, most days. The whole thing, every day, adds up in calories fast. This is a supporting player, not the whole strategy. The real fat-based heavyweight on this list is still 3 spots away. and it's probably already sitting in your cabinet doing nothing for you. Number 9. Fatty fish. Salmon, sardines, mackerel. These carry omega-3 fats that don't attack LDL directly so much as they calm the inflammation that makes LDL stick to artery walls in the first place, and they tend to bring triglycerides down at the same time, which matters more than people realize. The American Heart Association has pointed to 2 servings a week as a reasonable target for most adults. Canned sardines count. Frozen salmon fillets count. You do not need the fresh catch from a fishing boat. If the smell alone makes you push the plate away, a plain fish oil supplement is a conversation worth having with your doctor. But don't stop here thinking fish alone solves this. There's a food 2 spots down that's been crushed and left on a cutting board for exactly 10 minutes in kitchens for thousands of years, and almost nobody times it right. Number 8. Garlic. Crush a raw clove and it releases a compound called allicin. That's the sting that hits your nose and makes your eyes water while you're chopping at the counter. Allicin can nudge LDL down slightly and calm some of the low-grade inflammation that makes cholesterol cling to artery walls to begin with. The effect, reviewed by the National Institutes of Health, is real but modest. A few points, not a headline. Here's the part almost everyone gets wrong. Allicin only fully forms after you crush or chop the clove and let it sit for about 10 minutes before it hits heat. Throw raw garlic straight into a screaming hot pan, and you destroy most of it before it ever does anything useful. Crush it first. Let it rest on the board while you get the rest of dinner moving. 1 or 2 cloves a day is plenty. Skip the jarred, pre-minced stuff for this purpose, oko. Most of what made it work is already gone by the time it reaches the jar. Number 7. Extra virgin olive oil. This is where the fat conversation flips completely. Olive oil is loaded with monounsaturated fat and a compound called oleocanthal, and when it replaces butter or margarine on your plate, LDL tends to drop while your artery lining tends to function better. The landmark Predimed trial followed thousands of adults, many well into their 60s and 70s, and found that a diet built around olive oil and nuts cut major cardiovascular events by roughly 30% compared to a standard low-fat approach. 30%. From a bottle of oil and a handful of nuts. Buy the extra virgin, cold-pressed kind. The cheap refined stuff has had most of the beneficial compounds stripped out during processing. 2 to 3 tablespoons a day, drizzled, not deep-fried, is where the research points. And speaking of that handful of nuts from the same trial, there's one specific nut sitting 3 spots ahead on this list that does something olive oil simply can't. Number 6. Apples. That old line about an apple a day holds up better than most people expect. Apples carry a soluble fiber called pectin, and pectin grabs cholesterol in your gut and helps carry it straight out. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition put participants on 2 apples a day and tracked LDL and triglycerides dropping over the following weeks. Real numbers, not folklore passed down from a grandmother. The whole apple does something else too. It's bulky. It fills you up, so you're a lot less likely to reach for a cookie an hour later purely out of habit. Just make sure it's the actual fruit, skin included, because a good portion of the pectin lives right there. Applesauce carries a fraction of the fiber. Apple juice carries almost none, plus a hit of sugar working against everything you're trying to do. Real quick, before we go further, if any of this is landing for you, tap that subscribe button and drop a like. Takes 2 seconds. It genuinely helps this reach the person sitting exactly where Diane was sitting in September. Back to the list. Number 5. Almonds. A small daily handful of almonds has been linked, in studies tracked by the American Heart Association, to a modest but real drop in LDL, largely because the healthy fat inside them replaces the saturated fat you'd otherwise be snacking on. Walnuts and pistachios do something similar, so pick whichever one you'll actually keep in the pantry and reach for instead of chips. Watch the portion. A quarter cup is the target, not the entire bag in front of the television on a Sunday night. Nuts are calorie-dense, and more isn't automatically better here. What comes next isn't a snack food at all. It's the single strongest bile trapper on this entire list, and it's probably in your kitchen labeled as something you use once a year in soup. Number 4. Barley. Barley carries a specific soluble fiber called beta-glucan, and it is, without question, the best bile trapper on this list. It forms a thick gel in your gut and does one job extremely well. The evidence is strong enough that the FDA allows food packaging to carry a heart health claim tied directly to it. Research has linked barley's beta-glucan to LDL drops in the range of 5 to 7% in study participants who ate it consistently. The easiest way to use it, swap the white rice next to your dinner plate for cooked barley. Or toss a handful into soup where it thickens things up nicely. Cook it, cool it overnight in the fridge, eat it the next day, and it forms something called resistant starch, which feeds good gut bacteria on top of everything else it's already doing. One more step down, and we hit the food that quietly does more for cholesterol than a decade of skipping eggs ever managed. Number 3. Beans. If you're eating meat most nights of the week, this might be the single biggest swap available to you. A few nights, trade the meat for black beans or kidney beans instead. Beans bring soluble fiber and resistant starch together, and that resistant starch feeds bacteria that produce butyrate, fuel for the lining of your gut, and part of the machinery that keeps that return loop working for you instead of against you. Research pulled together in the Canadian Medical Association Journal found that a single daily serving of beans or lentils was tied to roughly a 5% drop in LDL. Plain, cheap, doing what a lot of people are hoping a pill will do for them. I'll be straight with you, beans make some people a little gassy the first week or two. Temporary. That's just your gut bacteria adjusting, and it settles. Soak dried beans overnight and discard the water, or rinse canned beans well. Start with half a cup and build from there. Number 2. Ground flaxseed. This might be the easiest addition on the entire list. Flax carries a gel-forming soluble fiber that traps bile in your gut, plus a plant omega-3 and compounds called lignans, both linked to lower LDL on their own. Together, research through the Cleveland Clinic points to daily ground flax meaningfully lowering bad cholesterol over time. Here's the catch, and it's a big one. Whole flax seeds pass through you almost untouched. The shell is too tough for your gut to crack open. Buy it pre-ground, or run whole seeds through a cheap coffee grinder at home, and keep it in the fridge so the oils don't turn rancid. 2 tablespoons a day, stirred into oatmeal, yogurt, or a smoothie. You won't taste it, and it costs you almost nothing at the store. Speaking of oatmeal, we've arrived at the number 1 food on this entire list, and this is exactly where I need you to lean in, because most people ruin it before it ever gets the chance to work. Number 1. Oats. Oats carry that same beta-glucan we talked about in barley, and oats have more research behind them for lowering LDL than almost any single food on Earth. Somewhere around 3 grams of beta-glucan a day, roughly 1 solid bowl of oatmeal, and research pointed to by both the Mayo Clinic and the FDA shows LDL dropping somewhere in the range of 5 to 10% within a matter of weeks, not years. That's the fast people keep asking me about, and I mean that honestly, not as a hook to keep you watching. Here's the mistake though. Use real oats, steel-cut or old-fashioned rolled, and skip the sugary instant packets entirely because the added sugar quietly works against everything you're trying to accomplish. Oat bran carries even more beta-glucan than regular oats if you want to push it further. Top your bowl with berries or a spoon of the ground flax we just covered, instead of a spoonful of brown sugar. Add a little cinnamon, and you've done more for your heart before 9 in the morning than a decade of skipping eggs ever managed. Now, one thing I need to say plainly, because it matters more than any single food on this list. Some of you are going to do all of this faithfully and still watch your numbers stay stubborn. You are not doing anything wrong. Roughly a third of people are what researchers call super absorbers. Genetics essentially program the gut to grab and hold on to more cholesterol than average, largely separate from how clean the diet already is. If high cholesterol runs hard through your family, or you've eaten cleanly for months with barely a shift in the numbers, that may well be you. You didn't cause that. Your genes did. And this daily wall of soluble fiber is exactly the kind of thing built to compete against that. One of the few tools that pries the return loop open from the outside, even when genetics are working against you. There's one more addition worth mentioning here, specifically for that group. Plant sterols and stanols, compounds that compete with cholesterol for absorption space in your gut, added to certain spreads and orange juices, and found naturally in smaller amounts in nuts, seeds, and vegetable oils. Around 2 grams a day has been shown to lower LDL by roughly another 10% on top of everything else. If your numbers have been stuck despite doing everything right, That's worth raising directly with your doctor. People ask me constantly, how fast is fast, really? If you stay consistent, LDL can begin shifting somewhere around the 2 to 4 week mark, and it keeps improving the longer you stick with it. One honest caveat: cholesterol circulates in your blood for several days at a time, so eating perfectly for 48 hours right before a blood test won't fake a good number. It's the daily pattern over weeks that actually moves it. One last addition, and it might be the purest tool on this entire list. A spoonful of plain psyllium husk stirred into a glass of water, once a day, with plenty of fluid. It's the same soluble fiber sitting inside most fiber supplements on the pharmacy shelf, working quietly alongside everything else you just heard. Now, something I need to say plainly, because it's the responsible thing to do. Food is genuinely powerful, but it works alongside your doctor, never instead of them. If your cholesterol is significantly elevated, if you've already had a cardiac event, or you're currently taking a statin or any prescription for this, please don't stop anything or skip an appointment because of a video you watched at home. Bring this list to your own physician instead. Ask them to treat it as a real, structured trial and have your numbers rechecked in a few months. For a lot of people, food alone gets them where they need to be. For others, it's what allows a lower dose of medication to finish the job safely. Either way, the plate is the foundation everything else sits on. If 10 foods feels like more than you can juggle starting tomorrow morning, don't overthink it. Oats at breakfast, beans at dinner, a small handful of almonds, an apple somewhere in between. Do that most days of the week, and you've quietly covered the majority of this entire list without trying to be perfect about it. Give it 2 weeks. Just 2. Pay attention to how your energy feels by the second week, and mention any changes to your doctor at your next visit so they can watch the numbers alongside you. That's usually when patients first tell me something feels different, even before the blood work confirms it. Diane, by the way, started with exactly that. Oats, beans, one handful of almonds, one apple a day. Nothing dramatic. Her recheck 8 weeks later showed real movement for the first time in 7 years. She cried in my office. Not because the number was perfect, because it finally moved. Next time, I want to walk you through the flip side of this entire conversation. The everyday foods sitting in most kitchens labeled heart healthy that quietly keep this loop locked shut instead of opening it. That one might upset a few breakfast routines you've trusted for years. If this was useful to you, subscribe so that video finds you when it's ready, and tell me in the comments which food from today's list you're starting with tomorrow morning. Take good care of that heart. It's been working for you this whole time. Give it something worth working with. This video is for general educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult your physician or a qualified healthcare provider before making changes to your diet, starting any new supplement, or adjusting any medication, including statins.